Chiang Hai-ding and Mr. Rohan, Chairman of the Straits Times Small Pocket Money Fund, Mr. Hanford Kwok. This book has come a long and winding circuitous route to us at Straits Times Press.
That's true.
However, I'm delighted to say that we have been able to get all of this organized today, just in time for next year's 50th anniversary. What do you think an Orang Laut, a Kopitiam Bone, a washerwoman's son, a historian, and a doctor have in common? I think they have a driving drive to make things happen for themselves, chart uncharted territories, and take on themselves their very own destiny. Otherwise, I don't see this motley crowd going anywhere. As it turned out, we produced an accidental nation, to quote Professor Edwin Lee, whom I pinched from Dr. Chang's speech, of accidental MPs, and here we are today. When we were putting the book to press, when we were going to the printers, I had two rather agitated editors, Dr. Chan and Mr. Rohan, ring me and said, "Shirley, will this book get you into trouble?" I said, "I don't think so." I said, "The stories seem very human, many touching, many from sort of different backgrounds, and they all had something in common. Everyone sort of tried their best, and most important of all, they said, 'Do you want to change the title?' So we said, 'No, we're at the press, you can't do that. We don't have the money to do that.' Belatedly, I thought of a different title, and I'm hoping to tell that title to you here today, because next year is our 50th anniversary, and I'm hoping another 25 of you will come up. You could get Hai-ding and Rohan, they're very experienced people now, to supervise it, and you could do a title called 25 Memoirs Can Do, because that is the epitome of the Singapore spirit. And nobody epitomizes that more than our guest of honor today. Osman, I have a 10-titled collection of books outside, and it shows you on the cover as a very handsome young man. Wow. We have priced that box title fairly. We brought it up today, and priced it very aggressively at a very good price, so that you can also buy that if you like. On behalf of Straits Times Press and Singapore Press Holdings, I'd like to say we are extremely grateful and privileged that Ambassador Kezemokani brought this to us, that Dr. Chiang and Mr. Rohan gave us this book to do, and we hope for many more to come. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Shirley. Now let us invite Dr. Chiang Hai-ding for the opening speech. Dr. Chiang, please.
Madam Chair, Ms. Shirley Liu, Guest of Honor, Mr. Othman Wok, Chairman of the Straits Times Pocket Book Fund, Mr. Hanford Kwok, my fellow editor, Mr. Rohan Kamis, MPs, past and present, family members, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I thank each and every one of you for being present today to attend this book launch, thus honoring the 25 contributors to the book. As Shirley said, for a time it appeared to me that our book we also served had taken us on our own long march. It has taken 8 years from its conception in 2006 to completion today in 2014. In these 8 years, there have been 2 general elections, and more MPs joined us as former MPs. Singapore has been described by my former historian colleague, Professor Edwin Lee, as the accidental nation. I believe, however, that there are no accidental members of parliament. The PAP leadership recruited potential MPs from among people who had already made contributions to society and who were expected to make bigger contributions in the political field. During their political career, members of Parliament make contributions at both the constituency and at the national level. After stepping down, most former MPs continue to contribute in other areas of life in Singapore. In our book of autobiographical essays, former PAP MPs share in their own way about themselves, what they did, how they did, and why they did. In the book, there are some of the former PAP MPs who refer to their stepping down. Among the 25 former MPs are some who were reluctant MPs. They had answered the call to serve, and they felt a sense of relief when they stepped down. They had done their duty. Among the others, some stepped down with regret, feeling that they had just hit their stride, while some others felt that they could have contributed more. But all stepped down when the time came. This afternoon, my brief speech is about their last contribution as MPs. Who are the former PAP MPs? We comprise those who had served in the first Singapore Parliament from the moment of independence in 1965, and those who had been elected in general elections from 1968 onwards, all the way until the 2011 general election. There are over 100 of us. Some members of the first Parliament, such as Chow Yok Eng, he's seated here on the third row, our first autobiographer, had been previously elected in 1959 to the Legislative Assembly of the self-governing city-state of Singapore. Some others, such as Osman Wok, seated on the front row, had been elected in 1963 to the Legislative Assembly when Singapore was a constituent part of the newly formed Malaysia. The PAP had contested the 1959 general election with the support of its left wing. Looking into the future, its Secretary General, Lee Kuan Yew, predicted the ultimate contestants will be the PAP and the MCP. The PAP for a democratic, non-communist, socialist Malaya, and the MCP for a Soviet Republic of Malaya. And the side that recruits more ability and talent will be the side that wins. During the 1972 general election, 7 years after Singapore had separated from Malaysia, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew articulated the necessity to find future leaders of Singapore. He said, "Our next most important duty is to provide Singapore with the next generation leadership with experience of government." Fast forward to 2014. On the eve of the 50th anniversary of Singapore as an independent and sovereign republic, one of our new ministers, Lawrence Wong, noted, as new generations come of age, better connected with one another and more exposed to the world, they will have different life experiences, aspirations and expectations. Political leaders must respond to this new situation, and political systems must evolve to remain effective. To recruit people of ability and talent who can connect with new generations, to provide for leaders with experience in government, some PAP MPs need to step down periodically to make room for others to to serve in Parliament. In the first general election of 1968, the PAP fielded 17 new candidates. The PAP then started in earnest the process of renewal in 1970. In a parliament that was 100% PAP MPs, the PAP asked 5 incumbent PAP MPs to step down to make way for new blood. During his term of office as Prime Minister after 1965, Lee Kuan Yew introduced a total of 110 new candidates in the course of 6 general elections and 2 big by-elections in 1970 and 1979. The PAP lost 1 seat in the House in the 1981 by-election. It suffered some losses in subsequent general elections, but it continued with the process of renewal. In 1990, a new PM took over the helm, Goh Chok Tong. He led the party into 3 general elections, 1991, 1996, and 2001. Goh introduced 61 new candidates. In 2001, there were in Parliament a total of 84 elected seats. From 2004, we have a 3rd PM in Lee Hsien Loong. In his first GE in 2006, he introduced 24 new candidates. In his second, in 2011, PM Lee introduced another 24 new candidates to make a total of 48. In the 11 general elections from 1968 to 2011 and 2 big by-elections in 1970 and 79, the PAP introduced a total of 219 new candidates to the people of Singapore. The total number of elected MPs in Parliament today is 87. In stepping down, these PAP MPs also made their final contribution as MPs to the people who had elected them to Parliament. They contributed by facilitating renewal so that the next generation of PAP MPs can represent the new generations growing up in Singapore. However, I believe that their story is not ended. Former PAP MPs can continue to make further contributions to Singapore by following the example of the 25 writers in this book. They can also write about their lives, motivations, experiences, and thoughts, so that their stories can inform and inspire other Singaporeans. And who knows, some Singaporeans who read their stories may follow their footsteps, and in time, they too can say, we also served. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. We would now like to invite our guest of honor, Mr. Othman Wok, to come forward to officiate the launch of the book We Also Served. Dr. Chiang and Mr. Roman Kamis will now present a signed copy of the book to Mr. Othman Wok. Mr. Han Fuk Kwang, Chairman of the Straits Times School Pocket Money Fund, please come forward to receive another signed copy of the book. Thank you, Mr. Osman Wong and Mr. Han Kuk Wong. Okay, we shall now start the panel discussion. Please welcome the 5 panelists: Dr. Chan Haiding, Mr. Rohan Kamis, Dr. Charles Sitting, Mr. Wan Husin.
Shirley has asked me to be moderator, as I've spoken already. First, let me say welcome to our panelists, all of whom contributed an essay each to the book. I shall introduce each with one sentence. Rohan Kamis, MP 7984, Kampung. Wan Hussein Zuri, 1980-1991, a teacher. Charles Sitting, 1980-1984, doctor. Al Sinakarupan, 1991-2001, entrepreneur. I shall ask Rohan to say a few words before I invite questions and comments from the floor.
I guess I have to earn my keep here because he has spoken, so it's time for me to say something. I would like to mention how we came about with the title We Also Served. Can you hear me? I just want to mention about the title. How did it came about? As you know, the duty and responsibility of an MP is service to the constituents and to the nation. And because we are former MPs, therefore we have served. Hence the operative word is served, past tense. However, since there are 125 of us when we started the book, and only 25 finally give their contributions. Therefore, if we use the title We Served, it gives the impression the over 100 may not have served. So we might get into big trouble. So we said, they served, we also served. Hence the title.
Thank you. The writing of a book, of this book, can also make a book. Can I invite questions from the floor? Please give your name, your organization, and if possible, the person you wish to put the question to. And please keep your question short. Mr. Tiong Yin Song, former MP.
问一下，这个书会不会翻译成这个华文版？因为大部分的这个受华文教育的，他们也期待的看这本书。
Tiong Yin Song wants to have.
这时候希望这个书呢，不久后呢也可以翻译成这个华文版。请这个张博士关注这点，谢谢。
Would you be putting this book into a Chinese edition? Because I think that there will be a significant market for it in Chinese. Yes.
The answer can come from Shirley.
Sorry, that's the translation of the question in Chinese.
And the response must come from you.
It must come from the three of us. I think there'll be a market for the book in Chinese, but it's quite a hefty book, and getting it right, I don't think it will take another 8 years. But we have to find two things: funds to do the translation, and the right kind of person or persons to do the translation. Because if you get it wrong, and they do not know, they're not our vintage, then it doesn't work.
Next question.
Can I?
Yes, Mr. Tan.
Yeah, my name is Tan Sipin. I'm interested in Mr. Ong Pang Book. He was one of the first few MPs, but his name not included in this book.
There are only 25 contributors, and we invited every former MP to write. So these 25 came forward.
I see. But one name I want to bring up is S. Woodhall. Was he an MP or wasn't he? He's a PAP member. I know.
Koka, I don't remember him.
S. Woodhall.
Woodhall?
Woodhall.
We didn't.
No, because I mentioned him because remember when PAP came into power, they cut off the civil servants' cost of living allowance of $400. And at that time it was very, very severe because some of them earned less than 1,000.
Could I ask you to put your question, please?
Yeah. So
What is the question?
I just want to know, is Woodhull one of the contributors
He's
or
not.
future contributors?
He's not. Please buy the book, then you know who are the contributors. Any other question? Aziz.
My name is Aziza from Aziza International Concept. You want me to stand?
Yeah, please stand. Yeah, I can't see who it is.
I thought I'm tall enough. First and foremost, I'd like to thank, and I'm very, very happy that you did doing what you did. But I'm sure during the 8 years, you must have faced a lot of challenges. Can you explain to us what are the challenges that you went through? Because it takes 8 years.
We started in 2006, and unbeknownst to many people, we actually bounced the idea of PM Lee Hsien Loong. And his response was positive and immediate, and he says, good idea, go ahead. Okay. And so we wrote to about 125 former PAP MPs. And the good thing is that about a third came back and said, yes, we will write, but some said, look, we will not write, but we send an interviewer, we will be interviewed.
Some of your countries.
Unfortunately, some started writing, or fortunately, some started writing, and they were supposed to each write a chapter for the book. That's why there are 25 chapters for 25 people. And some started writing, and when they started writing, they said, hey, it's very interesting, we would like to withdraw, because one chapter not enough. So they want to write their own book. So we now look forward to them writing the book. Some, unfortunately, before they could be interviewed, like Hao Yun Chong and Lim Kim San, they passed away. And some, after they had given their first draft, they passed away, like Mr. Ho Si Beng. But fortunately for us, we have the son and daughter, Ho Chao Tek, and Miss Ho continuing to do it. Then we have Sa'ari Tadin, who has said that he wanted to write, but this is the only exception. We asked his daughter, Mastura, to write on his behalf a biography. That's the only biography in 25 essays, which are supposed to be autobiographical. Then, what happened was that we have to look for a publisher. We decided that it must, because it is not government sanctioned, nor is it party sanctioned, therefore we must look for a good publisher. So we decided on the publisher was ISIS. And we met Kesavapani, who was very gung-ho and said, yes, no problem, we will go ahead. But we asked him, we said, look, there must be no censorship, the person must be able to write anything as long as it's the truth. He said, yes. You know? And that's Pani at the end. Right, Pani? Then I said, okay, so we will get everything done and we will pass it to him. So Heidi and myself went round getting the essays, but then Pani said, wait, where's the money? I thought the publisher is supposed to do everything and they will just give you the essay and then the profits you can keep. He said, no, it doesn't work this way, So that was the first hiccup that we had. Fortunately for us, we had a friend in Lee Foundation, and Lee Foundation gave us $100,000. So, and finally helped to receive the money. And so we went on, but trying to get MPs to write takes a long time, and we were lucky because we have got a good editor to do the styling. This is Judith Holmberg and Teo Kabing from ISIS help. And, but it took so long that we were then looking at how to make the book interesting, because I like pictures and so does Heidi. So we wanted to put a lot of pictures. Then the next thing came about. We asked the MPs, please give us some pictures. Some gave, some did not. We cannot have some with a lot of pictures and some with none. So we found out from SPH that they have a library. Then we found again, to our horror, that for every photograph you use from the archive, they're going to charge us $400. Unfortunately for us again, when I went to Parliament in 1979, one of my colleagues was a guy by the name of Tony Tan, who happens to be the chairman of SPH. So we wrote to him and he said, go ahead and use it as much as you want, but if you make any profits, please donate it to charity. Hence, the Straits Times Pocket Money Fund if you buy more books. Now, that being done, we also have to mention the name, the late Mrs. Lily Tan. She was the one that arranged for the interviewers and did a lot of communications. And if you look at the acknowledgement in the book, we actually acknowledge Lily. Now, while we were looking for the photographs, came a nice lady by the name of Shirley Hugh. She said, what are you doing here? I said, we're looking for photographs, we're doing this book. He said, why don't you ask me? And I said, sorry, we can't do that because we're committed to ISIS. Lo and behold, Pani retired because it took so long. And we have sent, just before Pani retired, or 6 months before he retired, we submitted the manuscript with all the photographs for the book. Then we didn't hear anything for about a year. And when we asked Pani, he said, what happened? He said, no, I'm no more there. You're going to check with the new CEO, the new director. So we went and asked for an appointment, and lo and behold, the new director said, well, we've got some bad news for you, and that is, we decided not to publish the book. And the reason was that it's not academic. It took them 5 years to find out that it was not academic. We never said it was academic anyway. So if you look at our preface, you will see that we say this is not an academic book. Then what do? We then had to go back to this nice lady by the name of Shirley Hugh, and we said, hi Shirley, by the way, remember you offered, would you be? And she said, sure. And straight away give it to us and we will get it done. But then we have a little hiccup. The hiccup was that since it was about 6 years, the first quotation for the printing was done, prices has gone up. And we have spent a lot of money, and Shirley said, hey, you want this, that, and the other. And if you look at the book, we insisted that the photographs should be on art paper, but we do not want to have a two-tone book. So we said everything will have to be on art paper. So we said it costs more money. So please buy more books, because otherwise Shirley will be out of pocket. And then the balance will then be donated to the pocket money fund. So that's the situation that we have, and here you are. Otherwise it will take a long time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, please.
I'm Ronald Lee. I'm an associate member of the Singapore Press Club. I come here to begin with. I would like to say to Encik Osman Wok. I thought he would be on the panel there. Encik Osman Wok is not only a very handsome young man before. For those who do not know him, he's a magician. Yes. So, together with a group of us, we learn all these funny magic tricks from late Tan Bachi. And we used to laugh at him, the only MP who has got a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Now, my question is that during those times, the needs of the people are very, very different. It's just bread and butter issues. And during the first couple of elections, the PAP has got very little choice to choose their candidates. I'm from the pioneer generation, and I followed the election right till today. We have our humble Encik Osman Wok, who does magic tricks. We have Mr. Kandasamy, who brings the house down because he couldn't speak fluent English. We have a lady MP, who we all call the Chee Chong Fan girl, because her mother was selling Chee Chong Fan in Chinatown. And then I heard that we also have a postman as a candidate, but I lost track about him. Now the question now I want to ask is, if in the next election we put back certain people from you all, the ex-MP, do you think you can serve the electorate? Because the electorate now are very sophisticated. Their needs are different. They are very vociferous. They want you to tweak the law so that they can get married. Not he and she, but he and he, and she. Yeah. So then later on they want you to tweak the law so that their partner can be impregnated via IVF and all sorts of funny things. And if Straits Times don't publish what they want to say, they will go to the multimedia, they will go to Facebook, and they will even garner 3,000 people to go to the speaker's corner. So that is the question. Can
you put the question in one sentence, please?
Yeah, the question is, if we put you all back for election, are you able to face this onslaught of questionings and queries and demands from the present day electorate? Thank you.
I'll start with who I think is the youngest.
I'm the youngest, yes, that's right. I think I'm enjoying my life now, like never before. I think we all have done our part, and I think that the younger people, serve and face some of the challenges that they have. I think we all were very lucky, because there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, and many things. Today it's very, very difficult to govern, no matter who serves. Whether the past MPs go there and start serving, I think the issues won't go away. Of course, the experience will help, but I think the issues need new solutions to solve. So I don't think any of my colleagues, I don't know about Zainal. Zainal didn't really retire, but every one of us, more or less, who is here, I think most of us retired, and I think we have retired for good. Thank you.
Well, I think if you remember, every time the PAP goes on a renewal process, they always look for younger people. So if you now say that you're going to put us back, you are going against the principle of the PAP. So I'm not too sure whether that would be a good idea. First, as you know, some of us are already in the, sunset years, and the issues are so different. So we have served our time. So let the young ones come on stage and do their part. Because as Mr. Hiding introduced me as a teacher. I was a teacher since 1950s, in the 50s. So by now I see the tremendous improvement, the change and the pace of the teaching system in schools that I cannot keep up with what's happening in the schools today. Similarly, when we are already past our era, let the new generation come forward and serve their generation.
Actually, I'm not sure about this question, but whatever it is, my personal feeling is that whoever wants to go into politics must do a substantial amount of community work. I think, and even having served as a member of parliament and retired as a member of parliament, he or she should still continue to serve the community.
Next question. Rosie Lee. And you guys see now.
Thank you. If I've heard correctly, earlier on, Shirley, you mentioned, raised a concern, which is something to do with will we get into trouble. Can one of you elaborate on this?
Either my name is trouble or I'm already in trouble. So it's a difference. What happened was this. When it was going into print, we thought about the name. And you know how the name came about. But there were some murmurings from some of the people that we bounced the name to. And they said, hey, your interpretation is that they serve, we also serve, so that we do not dilute what the other former MPs are doing, who do not participate in the book. That was our intention. But he says there is an unintended implication that could be interpreted, and that is, hey, you 25 people thought you were left out and you were now pulling out a flag and said, hey, we also serve. You have forgotten about us. But that wasn't the intention. So, since there are two ways of looking at it, as in anything, so we asked Shirley and said, hey Shirley, there is this possibility. What do you think? And Shirley said, well, it's a nice title, it's a bit cheeky. That was her exact words. And I said, let's. Anyway, it's already in print, we can't do anything. So there you are.
Yeah, the title we also serve, to me, is a very apt title. I can't help being reminded this title we also serve with the English poet J. Milton when he wrote his poem on his blindness. At the end of his poem, he said, they also serve who only stand and wait. So this title, I think, is really, really apt because the former MPs, they serve not by standing and waiting, but by walking and talking. So they walk the talk. I think it's a very beautiful title. Thank you, Rohan.
Well said. Pani.
Since my name has been mentioned, let me have a right of the club. When I first went to ISIS, the first lesson I learned was from Sir Rajaratnam. He said ISIS should exist to publish books that others would not want or dare to publish. And that was a guiding principle for me. And for me, the other principle was that ISIS should be there to create knowledge. Knowledge in all aspects, not just academic knowledge, but knowledge which from the ground. That is why one of the things we did was, ISIS was the first to bring up these first generation leaders under which we brought Dr. Joe's biography, Dr. Bukeka and Mr. Rajaratnam's biography, and a few others. So I think the main thing is that the institute should exist to create knowledge and make that knowledge accessible to everybody. So it was on that score that when the two gentlemen approached me, I didn't blink an eye, as you would realize. I said this is something that should be published and we will do it. So the fault of the 8 years was not ISIS' fault. Because we were ready to do it. ISIS can bring out a book in India 2 years after the news. So there were some internal problems that yours were not ISIS. The second thing is that the reference to climate of fear. There was, I don't know whether there still is, a climate of fear in Singapore. There are some books that we want to publish. I wanted to publish a book on dating. I very nearly got to the manuscript. Unfortunately, the climate of fear had not dispelled, and that book still remains as a manuscript. If somebody is brave enough, can go and get it and publish it.
Could I just ask you for the name of that book? I couldn't catch it.
No, it's not published. It's just a manuscript. But the family still is having a climate of fear and is not willing to let it publish. So there's something to be said about this climate of fear. But what we should do, any institute should be brave enough, so what can happen? Just publish and be done. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Ambassador Kesavapani, former Director, Institute of Southeast Asian Studies. Zainab, yes, please.
Hi, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Chang. I'm standing up maybe just to make Pani's point, make Pani happy, to show you that we should worry about the climate of fear. Earlier on, the Sinha mentioned most of the MPs retired, with the exception maybe like Zainab. We were actually ends because we lost, and we shouldn't fear to say that. We lost election in 2011, and in fact I call it like our Arjunate Spring. The Arab Spring, we have Arjunate Spring. But I'm happy to know that we have not actually shuddered from that. In fact, we faced the challenge squarely, and we are now talking about the new normal, the new Singapore, the new climate economy also alluded to, that requires a different kind of politics. I think Parliament recently, PM spoke about, President Tony Tan and PM spoke about constructive politics. So my question is actually to former members of Parliament, some of whom are my mentors, some of my close friends, and I know they all have been through a lot, sacrifices from their personal life to their professional life, and they have done their part, and we are very proud that they have served, they come forward to serve as our MPs, and they've done well in that sense. I think they deserve a big round of applause for that. So having gone through that part of Singapore politics, which is more predictable, maybe easier to even win elections, but has changed now. So what do you think about the new normal in Singapore politics? Do you think our Singapore government has responded well to this new normal? And what more is required to ensure that our Singapore continues to be stable and harmony and prosperous? Thank you.
That was Mr. Zainal Abidin, former Senior Minister of State, Foreign Affairs.
I didn't get the question.
Summarize in one line what was the question?
How do you see the new normal, the new politics in Singapore? Where the Singapore government has responded well to it? What more?
He wants me to talk as a citizen. I would say the Singapore government has done very well in response to all inquiries, but I think more needs to be done. As you know, the young generation of citizens are pretty demanding, more demanding than the old days, as you know. Yeah? And as for the what needs to be done, of course, will only be known in the coming election. But I think, frankly, the government has responded very well to the so-called new normal. The new normal, of course, will mean even more and immediate response to the needs of the people.
They say that there are two lawyers in the room, there are three opinions. With about 30, 40, 50 politicians here, I think there may be 200 opinions. But I think I'll just give you my brief thoughts. Basically, I think that it's not two major things that put us in this position. One is, of course, as everybody has said, the social media and what has come out, the expectations of the young. But the other thing, taking Pani's point of climate of fear, the other thing that has caused us to be in this position is that after the third generation leaders have taken over in the early 2000s and beyond, they were new in certain positions. I think collectively certain mistakes were made, policy mistakes on hindsight. We all know the foreign talent policy went a bit too far and cost us the attendant problems in housing, transportation, employment for senior levels and so on. So, unless we come forward and make some admissions in a more sincere way, I think, we're not going to have the same social compact that we had in the earlier generation. The earlier generation, we had a social compact between the leadership and the people of Singapore. That, I won't say has been broken. Catherine Lim used trust, I'm not going to use trust. But I think we have lost some of this social compact between the people and the leadership. We need to create a new social compact in a new era, and unless and until we do that, I think the party is going to continue to face greater challenges. And I think the government, the cabinet is trying to do their best, but I think they are still a while away from reaching that.
I think the government has moved quite far in listening to the people. Because if you remember, when the election was, the last election, because of the issues, three main issues of housing, transport, immigration, and so forth, then suddenly we were given the news that three ministers, or I think 3 or 4 ministers were dropped. In other words, they listened to what is happening on the ground. But somehow or other, I think the feedback from the grassroots, there seems to be a mismatch between the feedback of the grassroots and what's happening on the ground. So it is this that they miscalculated to get votes from the constituencies, especially from alternate constituencies. So I think the problem now is to try and understand what the younger generations feel. Because Wapani mentioned about climate of change, but now I think it's the climate of challenge. People want to challenge the establishment. It's the in thing to show show that, I have my own idea. Whether you listen or not, I want to challenge you. But I think if we present our program, the PAP program, rationally, without arrogance, tell them that we have the best plan, we have the best manifesto. I think the young people, after certain years, will come through us and will understand that the future is to be governed properly. So I think the government is really listening, but I hope there is no or very minimal mismatch of the grassroots feedback to the government, because otherwise we may lose certain niches in the constituency that may be at our disadvantage.
Thank you. I would like to make just two comments. One is, among the 25 contributors, we all belong to the first two generations of Singapore PAP MPs, 1963 to 2001, Sinakarupan. From 2001 to 2021, that would be the third generation of PAP MPs in Parliament. So I think there is a generational change. Having said that, I think, as I know you have referred to the Arjunit swing, I think there's probably another swing which is taking place within the cabinet. And Taman, who indicated that he might come today, he has said today if the cabinet is to be described, it is probably left of center. So I think there is a swing in the government as well, from maybe focusing on economics to focusing on social issues.
I've got no comments on this. I think it's all been exhausted. Except I want to tell you that if I could share with you, the situation on the ground is totally different. For instance, when my father used to tell me to do something, I know that it's not the best way to do it, but I quietly do it as best as I can without any question. Now when I ask my two daughters to do something, the first thing they say is, why? Can you explain? I think we can do better. So the situation has changed. And furthermore, previously we say, do what I tell you to do. Don't do what I do. Now they expect you to walk the talk. In other words, you cannot say that, hey, for me it's a different set of rules, for you it's a different set of rules. And I think the government is learning, slowly but surely.
Jezana, okay? Okay, there's Dr. Chew Beng Keng, physician, grassroots leader, Senator.
When I was a new graduate, there was a time when PAP came in. So I'm the pioneer generation. So I was very happy when we published this book. So I came to see most of the MPs whom I have heard of, but some of them whom I know very well. So I think it's a very good idea for you to publish this. But my suggestion to you is, what happened to the rest? You don't publish. Are you, on your own or somebody else, will make some form of biographical descriptions of those who have served before? People, many people don't know about Ahmad Ibrahim was the first Minister for Health. He was not a scholar, not a graduate, and there was a postman who was a power maker in Tanjung Pagar. I think you know it, it's Jahidi. You are that group of people. So we must have stories of these people to inspire the younger people to know that PAP started with really common people, not the professional, not those who must be very intellect to serve as an MP. Now the second thing is I want to be a bit cheeky with you. You said we also serve. You use the title we also serve, because you didn't want the older people to get angry with you for writing this book. But my interpretation is that you are angry with young people, say, we also tell you that we also serve.
I will just make two quick responses to thinking. First is that, as Pani said earlier, ISIS is recording the stories of our early leaders. And secondly, there is a unit called the Oral History Unit of National Heritage Board, which does interviews with people from all walks of life. And the records and the contents of the interview are kept. The only issue with that is some people embargo, so nobody can read them for 30 years, 20 years. Somebody forgot to state the number of years it is embargoed, so technically it can never be looked at, which is such a great pity. But I agree with you that we should have more former MPs write their stories. In fact, that was the last sentence in my little speech. Any other questions?
You didn't answer. You also serve. He's a tricky one.
Yes, the gentleman with the black shirt.
My name is Wang Xinping from Everbright Business Consultancy. So far, I noticed that there's no relatively younger people come on, so let me fill a gap. I'm relatively younger, but not so young. I was born in the 1970s, not 80s, not 90s. I noticed that in the book, particularly in the preface, my question to the panelists would be relevant in this sentence. They give inside story of the famous tea, an interview at which the prospective MPs were looked over by various levels of the party leadership. I know this, everybody knows that, what's the famous tea. So if my question is to panelists is, overall, largely, that means the way the prospective MPs being produced is top-down approach. In today's Singapore, in the new normal, we are putting, or we should put much more emphasis on strengthening the communication, the connection, the trust, the confidence between the government and the people. So my question is, in your opinion, this way we produce the candidate, the top-down approach is still relevant, effective, or we could find equivalent, if not better way, to whether it's nominated or elected or some other way to get a new candidate, to facilitate the process, to strengthening the communication, the connection, the trust between the government and the people. Thank you.
Can I try to summarize the question? This selection process of candidates could be not only top-down, but also bottom-up. Is that what your question?
Yes, lastly.
We talk about the tea sessions. In my case, based on personal experience, I never went through the tea sessions. Okay? The reason was that the first time round it came to read my essay, I refused. The second time round it came, I refused again. Suddenly, Cik Rahim said, would you have time to see the Prime Minister? I said, of course, you know. And so I thought it was a one-to-one session. It wasn't. I walked into the room, there were about 12, 14 of them on one side. And I've learned in systems engineering that that is the most ineffective way of interviewing. Because when you interview somebody, you're supposed to put the guy at ease. And there you are, red-faced Lee Kuan Yew with a thick dossier in front of him. The room was so cold and I had to wait for 90 minutes because I didn't want to be late. So everybody down the line added half an hour in case you're late. So I was 1.5 hours early. And then he asked the first most incredible question. How many brothers and sisters have you got? Because I was so unnerved, I forgotten how many brothers and sisters I've got. So I had to quietly count. So there you are. Then after the session, I was so happy that I thought the whole thing is over. But it wasn't. But read about it.
Well, you have one experience of tea and chat. I think top down, bottom up, tackle the middle. Anything that works, and you see the results in the 25 essays. Any other questions?
Then one more, which is not in the book. You see, some of the questions they ask, they know the answers. Huh? And they ask a question like, where does your in-laws live? And I said, in Teluk Blangah. I did not know that I was going to be fielded in Teluk Blangah. He said, oh, what's the address? Block 62, Teluk Blangah Drive, you know, Teluk Blangah Heights. And I said, oh, what's the house number? I said, gee, if you go to block 62, you go to the corner lift, you go right to the top, you climb 2 more stairs, you turn left, the second house is where my in-laws live. But I wouldn't know what the address is. Oh, I see, oh, I see. So I thought I'm sure to fail. Next question they asked, which is not in the book, I will share with you. What is your father-in-law's name? I said, Mr. Siu, because my wife is a Siu, you know. I said, what's his full name? I said, gee, what do I know what his full name is? You know? Then he said, what do you call him? I said, father.
Rohan will make it to 2 confessions. Any further questions? Well, Dada. Well, I would like to thank the 4 panelists for taking on all the questions. And I would like, on behalf of all the contributors, to say thank you to Shirley, or she's left the room, and to her team for organizing the production of our book, especially to Shovalu, who also was not here. She has gone to the airport. We had planned for a long session, but Shirley had provided time for us to meet with our old friends, because she was quite sure that an occasion like this will bring many old friends together and they might like to catch up with each other. So we will have some time before refreshments are served at 7:15. But on behalf of the contributors, I would like to urge you to do 2 things. One is to buy the book so that the Straits Times Student Pocketbook Fund will benefit from it. And secondly, to read the book, please. Thank you very much.
Very big thank you to our 5 distinguished panelists for the insightful discussion. We also served as a